After I got promoted, my cousin faked emails to HR claiming I slept my way up, then told everyone at our barbecue I was too good for the family now. So I played a Zoom call that wrecked his job and his marriage in one shot. It was supposed to be a normal Saturday barbecue. Family, cheap beer, and that awkward mix of small talk and unspoken resentment that always shows up when everyone's pretending to be fine. I'd just been promoted to senior project manager at my company, something I worked 6 brutal years for. My mom couldn't stop bragging, and my cousin Tyler clearly hated every second of it. Tyler was always the smart one growing up, the one who was going places. Except he never actually went anywhere. Lost his finance job 2 years ago, blamed bad management, and since then he's been freelancing from his basement. If freelancing means day drinking and half-assing crypto schemes. So there I was, sipping my drink, talking to my aunt about office life, when Tyler stands up, loud enough for everyone to hear, and goes, "Well, guess sleeping with the boss finally paid off, huh?" Everyone froze. My heart just stopped. I laughed, thinking he was joking, but then he smirked and said, "Oh, come on. Don't act innocent. HR must be real forgiving these days." He looked straight at me, that smug, knowing face, the kind of look that said he wanted to destroy me. People started whispering. My uncle coughed into his beer. My mom looked mortified. I walked inside to breathe, and that's when my phone buzzed. A message from my friend Lisa, who works in HR at my company. "Hey, just so you know, we've been getting some weird anonymous complaints about you. Pretty graphic stuff. Someone's accusing you of sleeping with your boss for your promotion. I'm investigating, but you should probably know." My stomach dropped. I opened my email and saw one of the reports attached. The sender's name was Concerned Employee 77, but the email format, the phrasing, it was so Tyler. He even used a phrase he always says, climbing the ladder by laying down first. He wasn't just talking trash, he was trying to get me fired. I walked back outside, staring at him across the yard. He raised his beer at me like a toast. I didn't say a word, but right then, I made a promise to myself. I was going to ruin him, slowly, and in a way he wouldn't see coming, because I had something he didn't know I had. Something that would tear apart everything he thought he could control. And all it would take was one Zoom call. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a house where everything was measured against somebody else's success. My parents weren't rich, but they believed in hard work. Tyler? He was the golden kid from the start. Honor roll in middle school, the kid who got praised in parent-teacher conferences, the one everyone said, has potential. Me? I was the kid who learned to fix things, stay late, and keep my head down. That stuck with me. I went to state college, took internships that paid in coffee gift cards, and slowly clawed my way up at a corporate shop in downtown Cleveland. For 6 years, I did the grunt work. I managed projects nobody else wanted. I stayed late when deadlines froze most people's brains, and I read way too many industry books on weekends. When I finally got promoted to senior project manager, it felt like the kind of quiet victory you don't broadcast at Thanksgiving because you know someone will try to take it from you. But Tyler broadcasted envy like it was oxygen. He'd text me passive-aggressive memes about overnight success, troll my LinkedIn posts, and make those little barbed comments in front of family like he was auditioning for the role of my life's villain. The resentment didn't happen overnight. It built up after Tyler lost his finance job 2 years ago and decided the world was out to get him. He blamed managers, algorithms, a conspiracy, and he started sleeping on other people's pity. He talked a big game about side hustles and trading, but every time we met he had another excuse for why nothing stuck. I felt bad for him, sure, until it turned malicious. Passive bitterness hardened into something sharp. I didn't suspect him of sabotage at first. I assumed the anonymous HR complaint was one of 1,000 petty office rumors. Then Lisa, my friend in HR, sent me the forwarded email and the original headers. She helps me because she's decent, but she's also careful. I opened the headers and pretended I knew what I was doing while my heart did the stupid sinking flip. There was a route trace to a residential ISP in our part of town. Small detail. But then I noticed the wording. A phrase Tyler uses all the time when he wants to sound clever. Climbing the ladder by laying down first. I'd heard him say it a dozen times over beers. It was his go-to jab. Nobody else used that phrasing. That should have been enough to call him out, but I still wanted proof. I'm not reckless. I'm not Tyler. Instead of confronting him that night, I went home and thought like someone who's been in corporate trenches. Gather evidence. Lisa told me she couldn't reveal internal investigator info, but she could say they were taking the complaint seriously. That's when I started watching Tyler more closely. His posts, his texts when he left his phone face up, his little smug grin when he thought he'd said something that landed. He slipped up a few times, letting phrases fly that matched the complaint. That's when doubt mutated into something else, certainty. The first hard proof came 2 days later, the kind of accident no one plans for. We were at my parents' house for dinner. Tyler had his laptop nearby because he had to send a quick thing. He got up to help my aunt with the salad and left the screen open. I didn't go snooping at first, I told myself I wouldn't, but the draft on the screen had his email draft folder open and a half-finished address that looked like one of those anonymous throwaway accounts. The subject line said, plainly, for HR, anonymous complaint. I'd never felt so cold. I closed his laptop like it was a hot stove and walked out into the backyard to steady my breath. I knew then this wasn't just family sniping. Tyler had crossed a line and he'd left a track. I made a choice in that backyard. I could go to HR with what I'd seen and let them handle it, or I could do the thing Tyler thought I was too soft to do. Fight back in a way that would make him break. I went inside and sent one text. Bring a beer to the grill, I wrote. He laughed in my direction, and I smiled like I didn't have a plan that was already set into motion. I don't play fair. Not because I enjoy being petty, but because Tyler started a war and wars changed the rules. For 2 days I ran like an idiot through options. Go to HR and say, my cousin did this, which would have been messy in a different sort of way, or bait him into proving it himself. Picked bait. Corporate instincts die hard. You deal with liars the same way you deal with bad vendors. Don't argue, collect receipts. I started small and slow. I leaned on Lisa at HR, not to lie or to plant evidence, but to ask what would happen if an employee wanted to retract an anonymous complaint. She told me, without batting an eye, what I already suspected. HR treats retractions and new info as part of the file. If you had a retraction plus corroborating proof, the complaint looks a lot less credible. That gave me a path. I couldn't force HR to do anything, but I could make the right things land in the right hands at the right time. The bait was a fake friendly mediation. I texted Tyler the way you text a person you want to disarm. Casual, a little smug, like nothing's wrong. Hey, family barbecue was weird. Want to talk it out over Zoom? My friend from HR can sit in, just to keep it clean. He bit because Tyler loves an audience. He needed to be right in front of people. He needed to be the guy spitting venom and getting applause. He wanted an audience more than he wanted the truth. I told Lisa the truth about the text drafts I'd seen on his laptop, but not all of it. I asked her to join a mediation as an observer using her HR title. She agreed because she was a decent person and because she hated injustice as much as I do. We scheduled the call for a weeknight. Family time is prime bait. I framed it to Tyler as a chance for him to clear the air and maybe apologize if it was a misunderstanding. He called me soft, then RSVP'd. The night of the call, my hands were steady because my brain was doing the work. Prepare, stay calm, let him talk. On camera, he wore that same smug face. I booked the Zoom link and sent it, harmless. Lisa joined on mute. I muted my microphone for long stretches and let him ramble. He started with jokes, the kind that are jokes only when no one takes them seriously. Then he leaned in. He wanted the moment where the family would look at him and say, yeah, that's harsh but fair. He wanted to be the one who exposed corruption. He wanted to feel righteous. He got careless. He slid into specifics, phrases he'd used with friends, timing that matched when the anonymous complaint went out, and worst of all for him, a laugh about how easy it was to make a throwaway account. He bragged, and bragging is poison. He said things he thought would make him sound clever. He'd framed me to teach me humility. He'd told people at the barbecue he was protecting the family's reputation. And then, like a man who's been drinking alone too long, he told a story about sending anonymous emails to other people before. Not hypothetical. Proud. He swore he'd never been caught. He didn't know Lisa was listening with the right kind of attention. When the call ended, he thought he'd won. He thought he'd sounded manly. He pulled the kind of grin that says, "I got away with it," and went back to bragging in family chat threads later that night. He didn't know I had clipped parts of the call where he admitted the email and laughed about sabotage. I didn't post anything yet. I had a plan that hinged on timing and leverage, and I knew Tyler's panic window would show up right after he believed he was untouchable. I uploaded a 2-minute clip to my laptop and stared at it until the anger burned out of my hands. I could release it to HR, to our family, to his wife. I could watch him explain it away and watch him fail. There was one more move left. I hit send on a message to someone I hadn't planned to, a name that would change everything. And then my phone buzzed with an incoming text that made my stomach drop. From a number I didn't recognize and with 4 words that meant the game was about to escalate in a way I hadn't planned for. "Read this. Now." That text came at midnight, right when I thought I'd finally calmed down. The number wasn't saved in my contacts, but the message had an attachment. A screenshot of an email chain between Tyler and someone with my boss's name in the subject line. My blood ran cold. The subject said, anonymous tip, following up about my name, promotion. I clicked it open. The email body was short, but what it said made my skin crawl. "Appreciate your cooperation. Keep everything under wraps until the internal review is complete. Don't share with her yet. HR." Except the email address wasn't exactly my company's HR address. It was off by 1 letter. HR department instead of her dept. A fake. Someone had been posing as HR, sending emails to my boss pretending there was an active investigation about me, and my boss had been playing along because he thought it was real, which meant this wasn't just a family feud anymore. Tyler had gone corporate with it. But that wasn't the worst part. The screenshot had a forward header. The message had been sent from my boss's inbox to Tyler's personal Gmail. My mind went blank. I scrolled, reread, counted the dates. 2 weeks before the barbecue. Tyler had been in contact with my boss before the promotion went through. That's when the message sender finally replied to my, "Who is this?" text. "You don't know me. I used to work with Tyler." He bragged about what he was doing. Said he had your boss wrapped around his finger. Said he could make or break your career. Thought you should see this. I stared at my phone for a long time, feeling my stomach twist. I asked who they were again, but they didn't answer. The number went dead. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment, staring at that email chain over and over, realizing Tyler hadn't just tried to frame me. He had convinced my boss I was under investigation, maybe to spook him into silence, maybe to control the narrative. He must have sent tips under fake HR addresses until my boss panicked and responded. And the sickest part? Tyler must have done it to feel powerful. He'd always been obsessed with corporate people, titles, hierarchy. He wanted to feel like the guy who could pull strings behind the curtain. By morning, I was shaking from rage. I forwarded the screenshots to Lisa. She called me immediately and said, "That's not us. That's fraud. Your company can press charges for impersonation." That's when I told her everything about the Zoom call, about the clip, about Tyler's confession. She was dead silent for a full 10 seconds. Then she said something I'll never forget. "He doesn't just hate you. He's trying to own you." It hit me like a slap. Tyler didn't just want to ruin me. He wanted to take credit for the ruin. He wanted to be the reason I broke. I thought about exposing the emails right then, but something in me held back. There was more to this, something I hadn't uncovered yet. My gut told me he wasn't working alone. So I dug deeper into Tyler's finances, his work contacts, his supposed freelance clients. And that's when I found the thing that flipped the whole story on its head. A deposit, $3,500, from a company name that looked familiar. I Googled it. It was my company's direct competitor. When I saw that $3,500 payment from our rival firm, I swear my breath came out like static. Tyler wasn't just a jealous cousin with too much time. He was being paid to sabotage me. I called Lisa again the next morning, voice trembling but steady enough to make her listen. I told her about the transaction, the fake emails, everything. She went silent, then said, "If that's true, It's corporate espionage. Do not confront him yet. But of course, I wasn't going to wait around for legal channels. Tyler had made this personal. I wanted him to feel the way I did that night at the barbecue, cornered, humiliated, and powerless. So I started planning. First thing I needed was leverage. I had the recorded Zoom call where he admitted to sending anonymous complaints, but now I needed to link him to that fake HR email. I knew he used a cheap laptop and his home Wi-Fi for everything. Lisa gave me a name, one of the IT guys who handled company-wide security audits. I met him for coffee under the excuse of wanting to understand how phishing scams were tracked. He told me about metadata, about email headers, and about how fake domains could still reveal the sender's original IP address if you knew where to look. That's when I asked Lisa for a favor that could have gotten her in trouble. Can you get me the full header from that fake HR email? She hesitated, then sent it after hours with a warning. Don't do anything reckless. Too late. I traced the IP address through a basic lookup. Pointed back to Cleveland, same provider Tyler used at his house. I saved every piece of evidence in a folder called Barbecue Aftermath. The next step was timing. Tyler loved public wins, and he loved bragging on his social media. He had this ritual where he did a weekly live stream on Facebook called Finance Fridays, where he talked about markets and motivation. The dude barely had 10 viewers, but he acted like he was Tony Robbins. I decided that was where he'd fall. I clipped part of the Zoom recording where he admitted to sending fake HR emails. Then I spliced in a screenshot of the IP trace and a few slides explaining what impersonating HR meant in legal terms. The video wasn't flashy, just clean and factual. Then I queued it up to autoplay on a Zoom screen share. But the best part, the poetic part, was how I was going to get him to join the call. See, Tyler's wife, Emma, had been messaging me since the barbecue. She apologized for his behavior, said she was embarrassed, that he'd been drinking too much and lashing out. She seemed kind, real kind. But then, 2 nights later, she accidentally sent me a screenshot meant for someone else. A text from a number saved as D. It said, "He's clueless. He thinks we're just talking about work." Same time next week. Emma texted me again right after. "Oh my God, that wasn't for you. Please delete that." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. D was my boss's first initial. I didn't even feel anger at that point, just a kind of numb, surgical focus. Tyler's wife and my boss were having an affair. Tyler didn't know. And that was when I realized how to end this. I'd bring them all together, Tyler, his wife, my boss, and I'd do it on one call the same way he tried to destroy me. Lisa helped me set it up under the guise of a follow-up meeting regarding the investigation. Everyone agreed to join. None of them knew what was coming. Tyler thought he'd be exonerated. My boss thought HR was closing the case. Emma thought she was just moral support. But I had one file queued up that would burn every bridge they thought they were standing on. All I had to do was press share screen. The meeting was set for 7 p.m. on a Thursday, just early enough that everyone would still be in work mode, but late enough that it'd sting when their personal lives started bleeding through the edges. I sat in my apartment with the lights off except for my laptop screen, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it echo through my ribs. Lisa was already in the Zoom waiting room under her real HR account, calm as ever. Tyler's name popped up next. Tyler M., freelance consultant. The smugness in even his display name made my jaw tighten. Then my boss joined, his face all strained politeness. And finally Emma appeared, hair tied up, sitting in their kitchen, the faint clatter of a wine glass in the background. I started the meeting the same way any HR call starts. Polite, procedural, boring. I wanted them relaxed. "Thanks for joining, everyone," I said, keeping my voice flat. "This is just a quick review of the recent anonymous complaint issue. Lisa from HR is here as a witness." Tyler smirked into his camera. "Finally clearing my name, huh?" "Something like that," I said. I shared my screen. The first slide came up, a screenshot of the fake HR email to my boss. Then, next slide, the IP trace pointing straight to Tyler's house. His smirk cracked for the first time. "Tyler," I said slowly, "this is your IP. That's your ISP. You impersonated HR to sabotage me, and you sent fake complaints to my company. That's a felony. He started sputtering. That's not, you can't, I didn't. But Lisa cut in. Calm, professional. We've verified this information internally. We'll be contacting legal. Then I clicked the next slide. A short video started playing, the clip from our earlier Zoom call where Tyler bragged about making anonymous complaints and teaching me humility. His face on the call went dead white as his voice filled the speakers. I just wanted her to know she's not untouchable. Emma covered her mouth. My boss looked like he wanted to crawl through the screen. Tyler started yelling. You recorded me? You set me up. Yeah, I said. Like you set me up. I could have ended it there. That would have been revenge enough, watching him lose his job and his fake dignity in one hit. But I had one last file queued, and I couldn't stop myself. Before we wrap, I said evenly, there's one more thing everyone here deserves to know. I clicked play. A screenshot filled the screen, the text from Emma to D, followed by a cropped photo of her and my boss from a corporate dinner last month. Nothing scandalous, just close enough to raise eyebrows. The silence after that was unbearable. Tyler stared at his wife, frozen, like his brain was trying to catch up to what his eyes were seeing. Emma went pale, stammering, It's not what it looks like. My boss finally spoke, voice shaking. This isn't appropriate. Neither was sleeping with your subordinate's cousin's wife while investigating fake HR emails. I snapped. The whole thing went to hell in seconds. Emma started crying, Tyler started shouting, and my boss killed his camera. Lisa was trying to maintain control, but even she looked stunned. And then, right before I ended the call, Tyler said something that changed everything again. Something that made my stomach drop. He yelled, You think I did this alone? You think your boss didn't ask me to do it? And the way my boss's camera suddenly flicked off told me he wasn't lying. After the call blew up, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Missed calls from Tyler, 1 from Emma, 3 from a blocked number I knew was my boss. I didn't answer any of them. I sat in the dark for hours, replaying that moment, Tyler shouting, You think your boss didn't ask me to do it? And my boss's face right before his camera went black. He'd looked terrified, not guilty. The kind of terrified that comes from knowing something bigger is about to break. The next morning, Lisa called me from her personal phone. She sounded exhausted. We need to talk, she said. She told me something that made my skin crawl. There had been rumors for months that upper management was trying to clean house quietly, get rid of employees they thought were too loyal to the wrong people. My name was on that list. My boss was under pressure to justify why I'd been promoted instead of a candidate with closer ties to the execs. When my boss hesitated to demote me, someone upstairs told him to look into her conduct. It was all phrased vaguely, but Lisa said the message was clear. Find dirt or create some. That's when my boss turned to Tyler. Tyler used to work in the same industry. He'd met my boss once years ago at a conference and bragged about being family to me, that he knew how to handle office politics. So when my boss needed something dirty done without fingerprints, he remembered the bitter cousin with nothing to lose. Tyler took the offer. The $3,500 wasn't a payoff from the competitor. It was a bribe from my own company's slush fund. Lisa had checked the ledger herself. There was a consulting expense to a shell contractor registered under Tyler's name, approved by my boss. That was the money. That's why my boss had looked so sick on that call. He knew if that connection came out, it wouldn't just be HR trouble. It'd be career-ending. The anonymous complaints weren't just Tyler's idea. They were company-sanctioned sabotage, an under-the-table plan to get me fired quietly, with misconduct as the reason. Tyler was supposed to make it believable enough that HR wouldn't question it. And for doing their dirty work, he got a small fortune and the promise of a referral when he was ready to come back into the industry. But then Tyler got greedy. He started sending more emails, taunting me at the barbecue, and bragging to Emma. My boss panicked because the plan had gone rogue. The whole reason he joined that final call was to try to rein Tyler in before the truth came out. When I asked Lisa why no one higher up stopped it, she just said, quietly, because people like you aren't supposed to climb too high without permission. That line hit harder than any of Tyler's lies. My own company, the place I'd bled myself dry for, had used my cousin to set me up like I was disposable. Tyler wasn't just jealous, he was useful to them. And when I'd finally caught him, I'd accidentally blown the lid off a corporate cover-up big enough to bury both of them. That night, I poured a drink, sat on my couch, and opened my laptop. The Zoom recording was still there, with everyone's faces frozen mid-chaos. I stared at it and whispered, "You wanted me humiliated. Let's see how you handle exposure." Because I wasn't done. Not yet. The revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be permanent. I reminded myself of one rule I learned in 6 years of corporate grind. Make every move defensible. That meant no theatrics, no public smear campaigns that could blow back on me, and above all, a paper trail so clean they couldn't pretend it didn't exist. I'd felt like a hostage to my own fury for weeks, and the only way out was to turn that fury into something exact and inevitable. First, I consolidated everything into a single, impossible-to-ignore package. The Zoom recording, the fake HR headers, the IP trace, the HR ledger showing the consulting expense to Tyler, the $3,500 deposit, Emma's texts to Dee, and a timeline that tied each thread together. I labeled files, timestamped transcripts, and wrote a 2-page executive summary that read like a prosecutor's brief. I gave it a name, Project Accountability. It lived on an encrypted drive and on a USB I kept in my apartment safe. Then I played chess instead of checkers. I emailed that packet to 3 recipients at once. An employment lawyer I'd consulted who specialized in corporate fraud, the external counsel listed on my company's vendor page, and a reporter at the local paper who had broken a few business scandals before. In the body, I wrote the plainest sentence I could. This is evidence of coordinated impersonation, quid pro quo payments, and a campaign to fabricate misconduct against me. Please advise. I attached the dossier and left the rest to the institutions that could actually act. Legal moved faster than I expected. Within a week, my lawyer told me the police had opened a fraud investigation. The reporter called within 48 hours and asked if I'd go on record. I said yes. The article ran with a headline that did the job of a hammer. Cleveland firm investigated over fake HR complaints. Internal payoffs alleged. They quoted my timeline, they quoted Emma's texts, and they had a comment from someone on the board saying there would be an immediate audit. Board-level emails flew like missiles. My boss took an unpaid leave the next day. The company's legal team launched an internal probe that made HR sound like a farce. They had to disclose the slush payments and the contractor invoices. Tyler's shell company was traced and frozen. The local police interviewed him for impersonation and wire fraud. The rival firm? It denied any involvement publicly and quietly distanced themselves from anything that smelled like scandal. Emma resigned from her role voluntarily the same week. Her social circles pivoted away faster than she could understand. The day Tyler got the subpoena, his expression was the same one I'd seen on his face the night of the Zoom. The realization that the game had ended and that his bets had been terrible. He called me. I didn't pick up. He texted apologies that read like transaction receipts. Emma sent a long, blaming message full of tearful self-justifications. I read them and felt only the thin, flat ache of fatigue. There were no cinematic scenes of triumphant laughter. There was an HR memo announcing restructures. There were lawyers and audits and a public statement from the company promising to take corrective actions. My boss resigned within the month. I heard later he was negotiating quietly to avoid criminal charges. Tyler lost most of his freelance gigs and, more quietly, his marriage. People at family events started treating me like someone who'd crossed a line and then stepped back with dignity. My mother cried for a week. I ate leftover barbecue for dinner and thought about what I'd done. Revenge is never the cathedral you imagine. It's a series of small, deliberate demolitions. I didn't break Tyler by humiliation alone. I broke the system that used him to break me. The relief that came after wasn't loud. It was the slow, steady uncoiling of a held breath. I walked into my office the first Monday after the dust settled, and people looked at me differently. Some with pity, some with respect, most with the new, awkward distance of people who'd watched a private thing become public. In the end, I gained what I wanted. My job, my reputation repaired by facts, and the quiet knowledge that I didn't let myself be erased. There's a small cruelty I'll admit to, watching Tyler try to explain himself in depositions, the cadence of someone who'd finally run out of excuses. But the real victory was practical. I kept my career, removed rotten people from my path, and learned that patience and documentation are sharper than any fit of righteous yelling. A few months later, at another family gathering, Tyler tried his old smirk. I smiled back, and for the first time it was literal. "Too good for the family," he muttered under his breath. I raised my glass and said quietly, "No, too careful for fools." He swallowed that one like a pill, and for once I let him.